Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Katarina. I am so excited about today's video. I haven't been this excited to film a video in a while. So as you can see from the title, this will be a finale for a couple of different eyeshadow panning projects that I have been doing this year. So Pando palette and Pando's eyeshadows. I will link down below the creators of both of these two projects, so remember to check them out. I decided to film one little bit longer eyeshadow panning finale video this year for a couple of reasons. First of all, now that I am filming, I am more than 39 weeks pregnant, so my baby is going to arrive any day at this point. Another reason is that there's no more new goals, there's no more new shades to roll in or anything like that. So if I filmed two separate videos, they would be really short ones. So I just thought, you know what, I'm rather going to film one little bit longer finale video. And also later in this video we will be talking about my year-end numbers, so where my pan percentage and my empty pan percentage is at this point. Alright, so as you do know, the eyeshadow palette that I have been panning is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette. So in 2019, when I did my year-long beauty replacements only no buy, I did this series on my channel called Shop My Shadows. In that series, I rotated through my entire eyeshadow collection, so my goal was to use each pan of eyeshadow at least once, so that I learned to know my eyeshadow palettes. So it was in August of 2019 that I focused on Modern Renaissance. After that, in fall of 2019, I did kind of like unofficially start working on this palette. So because of that, I had hit quite a few pans before I officially started panning this. And officially I started to pan that palette with this palette in December of 2019, so it has been 2 years. Before showing what this looks like right now, I do want to show you my monthly progress pictures with this palette since December of 2019. There's a couple of months this year that I have skipped, but of most months I do have progress pictures, so let's take a look at those. And this is what the palette is looking like right now. So as you can see, I did it. I was able to finish this palette. I am honestly so excited. I am so proud of myself. It took more than 2 years for me to get this one done. And as you saw from the progress pictures, first my progress with this one was very good, but after just quite short period of time my progress started slowing down. I do think Modern Renaissance is a complete palette when it is brand new, when you do have all shades there. However, I do think personally that the balance of the colors is a little bit off. So first of all, I was able to finish the kind of like basic shades that I use in every look, or almost every look, quite quickly. So Tempera and Cypress Amber were gone in just months after I started working on this palette officially. And also, this palette doesn't really have a lot of lid shades for me. The shades that I most of the time like to use on my lid are light shimmers, also light mattes sometimes, and yeah, this one just doesn't have that much shimmers. What this palette has a lot of is lighter mattes and mid-toned mattes that I could wear either as transition shade or as crease shade. And you know, because of that, when my staple shades, so the matte cream and the matte brown, as well as the light shimmery lid shades were gone, after that I stopped incorporating so many shades from this palette to my looks, and I would only use a couple of shades. So something as transition shade and something as a crease shade. Now obviously I could have gone in with all of the shades and layered them to get quicker progress, but for me that would be almost like wasting the product, and it wouldn't make that much of sense, because I oftentimes feel that I'm fine with using one lighter shade as transition shade and then going in with something more mid-toned to deepen out the look a little bit, or the crease. The last shade that I had left in this palette was Red Ochre, and there was just some product left in the corner a little bit over a month ago, and it took me 32 more uses to finish the shade. So I used it almost every day since the last update until now. There has been maybe one day that I didn't wear any makeup, and then maybe one day that I didn't want to wear this shade because I wore something completely different, if I remember correctly. But I was able to incorporate it into a lot of different looks. Okay, let's move on. Before getting into my Pando's eyeshadows finale part of the video, I want to share with you a couple of eyeshadows that I was able to finish. I'm not exactly sure when I finished this first one, but at least I know that last time that I filmed my Pando's eyeshadows update and I shared with you my empty pan percentage, this shade was not gone 10. But anyways, it is a single over here in my magnetic palette from BH Cosmetics. It was depotted actually from the BH Cosmetics Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette. It was one of the orangey mattes that I used as transition shade when I used Real Gar and Red Ochre in my crease. And then today I was actually able to finish this shade. This was depotted from the BH Cosmetics Modern Mattes. It is a shade I used on my brows, and today I do have it on my brows. And also, by the way, today is the day that I was able to finish Red Ochre from Modern Renaissance, so I do have that on my crease. But yeah, these two single eyeshadows are kind of like bonus shades that I finished. So really happy to have a couple of less singles in my collection, because you know, they were in colors that I do have so many times all over in my collection. Okay, so let's get to the Pando's eyeshadows part of today's video. So Pando's eyeshadows I started in July because I wanted to have some shades to focus on with my Pando palette. I have at all times wanted to work on one shade from the Too Faced Chocolate Bar eyeshadow palette. And by the way, the last time that I filmed a Pando's eyeshadows update was in October, so it has been 2 months since then. And I rolled in a shade from this palette in the last update. I rolled in the shade Strawberry Bonbon, and I'm actually so surprised, but I was able to hit pan on that shade, and it took only 3 uses after the last update that I hit pan on this. Even though there was a pretty nice dip in this eyeshadow, it didn't look that deep, but I know I did wear this eyeshadow quite a bit last spring and summer, because this sort of shade I would be more into during spring and summertime. So I guess I just had worn it down more evenly what I thought in the last update. But I'm happy to have another pan in this palette. This is probably my favorite palette in my collection still to this date, even though it's old as heck. But I love this palette. I love this color story. I love it because there is this more like warm neutrals, and then there is this kind of like more romantic side of things. Then, since the last update, I have been working on 2 shades from the Kat Von D Shade and Live Eye Contour palette. Well, nowadays it is KVD Vegan Beauty, but this palette is no longer available, and it was reformulated at some point, and I do have the old formula, so this is also pretty old. A lot of my eyeshadows are actually really old, but you know what, they still perform and I love them, so I don't care. So yeah, I was working on a couple of shades from this palette, and I was actually able to hit pan on both of those since the last update. So this shade Samael over here. Okay, so this shade I rolled in September, and I used it 9 more times since the last update to hit pan, and since then I have used it a couple of more times, so the pan is a little bit larger. In total in this project it took 14 uses for me to hit pan on this eyeshadow. However, it had some pretty nice use in it before that, but I will say this is not a difficult formula at all to hit pan on. It is really soft and powdery, and the pans are pretty shallow. And then a shade that I rolled in the last update in October is this shade Citry, and there is a baby pan there. I used it 21 times to hit pan. I used it as a deepening shade, and really happy to have a pan there too. Also, I did hit bonus pan, so I did hit pan on this peach, and as you can see it is a pretty nice pan. So after finishing the BH Cosmetics shade that I shared with you earlier, I started using this one as a transition shade for my warmer looks, and I was able to hit pan. However, I don't track uses for other eyeshadows than those in projects. Also, I was able to hit pan on this shade earlier in this project by using it as a brow color, and yeah, if it wasn't for doing Pando's eyeshadows, this palette would have 0 pans, so I am happy I did this. So those are the pans that I was able to hit for Pando's eyeshadows. However, there's 2 that I wasn't able to hit pan on. So first, a shade from the Seattle London Olivia Palermo palette, the green shade over here. I rolled this eyeshadow in September, and sadly I did use this 0 times since the last update. I just decided not to work on it for a couple of reasons. First of all, I knew it would be an impossible shade to hit pan on, so I knew I would only go for the 15 usage goal. But you know, another thing is that a cream like this, although I can do some fun looks where I combine this eyeshadow with some warm tones, I don't do those looks too often, and I just wanted to, you know, use shades that I know will go better with my Panda palette shades, and yeah, that's why I didn't use it more. However, since filming my last Pando's eyeshadows update, I was able to hit pan on this really light dusty rose sort of shade, and also in this project I was able to hit pan on this peach. This palette is also something that if it wasn't for doing Pando's eyeshadows, there wouldn't be pans, because it looked pretty much unused when I started this project. Then the last shade I was not able to hit pan on, it is a single, this peach over here. So I rolled out the peach from the Seattle palette just to roll this one in, and I feel at that point I was starting to be pretty burnt out with this shade. But you know, another thing is that if I want to wear a peach, I would rather focus on something older, because this is actually really new to my collection. I got this eyeshadow last Christmas time from an advent calendar, so it's not necessarily something I want to focus on when I do have light shimmery peaches older than 5 years in my collection. Okay, so that was really the finale part for the Pando palette and Pando's eyeshadows. Now, in the end of the video, I did want to talk about some numbers. I would do some comparing to the beginning of the year. However, I did declutter quite a bit of eyeshadow palettes this year. So I did give a lot of palettes away to my sister, or I sold a couple of my eyeshadow palettes. The numbers, they are so different now compared to the beginning of the year that I don't feel it makes a lot of sense for me to compare like totals and my pan percentage and how it changed, because so much of my collection actually left. But I will share with you where I am right now. So yeah, since filming my last Pando's eyeshadows update in October, I was able to hit 5 new pans. So I did hit pan on 3 shades from the Kat Von D palette, so the 2 shades that were in my Pando's eyeshadows, and then 1 bonus pan. Then I was able to hit pan on Strawberry Bonbon from the Chocolate Bar palette, and also I was able to hit 1 bonus pan in the Ciate London Olivia Palermo palette. Before the last update of my Pando's eyeshadows, I had hit 16 pans this year in my collection. So that means that in total in 2021 I actually did hit pan on 21 eyeshadows. Really happy about that. And then since filming my last Pando's eyeshadows update, I was able to finish 4 shades. So the 2 shades that were left back then in my Pando palette, so Real Gar and Red Ochre. And then I did finish the 2 singles that I shared with you today. And before filming my last Pando's eyeshadows update, I had finished 9 shades this year. So that means that in total I did finish 13 eyeshadows this year. And then something that I do want to mention, because this one does affect to my pan percentage, is that I decluttered some eyeshadows after my last Pando's eyeshadows update. I shared those eyeshadows with you in my end of the year declutter video, but I decluttered 17 eyeshadows, 16 of those were pressed eyeshadows, so the BH Cosmetics Beautiful in Barcelona eyeshadow palette. I do have at the moment total 157 eyeshadows in my collection where there is product in the pan, and that is all that I count towards my pan percentage. I don't count empty pans there. But of those 157 eyeshadows, I have hit pan on 23. That makes my pan percentage at the moment 14.65. So really happy with that. This was actually over 15 already. However, then I finished the 2 last shades, so because of that it dropped again under 15. But anyways, really happy with this one. And then the empty pan percentage, I'm so happy with this one. So I do have 23 empty pans in my collection at the moment. I do have my Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette, so that is 14 shades, and then I do have 9 singles that I have finished. So when I count those plus the 157 eyeshadows where there is product, in total I do have 180 eyeshadow pans in my collection. And because 23 of those are empty, my empty pan percentage is 12.78. That is where I am, my end of the year numbers. The empty pan percentage will start from 0 next year, and I don't think it will rise this high again. The pan percentage, I actually don't think that's going to change anywhere, because, you know, I'm not going to throw away any shades where there is pan, so, you know, I guess we will start from here. But yeah, the empty pan percentage will start from 0. Then in the very end of the video, let's have a quick chat about next year. At this point, what I know for sure is that what I'm going to be doing next year is a Pando palette. I know so many people love Pando's eyeshadows and would love to see me do that. However, there is a couple of reasons why I don't want to do Pando's eyeshadows next year. First of all, I feel I just want to select the eyeshadows that I work on myself, especially since, as I said, a lot of my eyeshadows are really old. But another thing is, and maybe the biggest reason why Pando's eyeshadows is not necessarily the best project for me personally, when I'm panning an eyeshadow palette, I only need to open like 1 or 2 palettes, depends a little bit. Oftentimes a palette, when I start panning it, it is a complete palette, but I will run out of some shades pretty quickly. So at that point I oftentimes need to reach for another palette. However, with Pando's eyeshadows, the thing is that, you know, if you really want to make good progress, it would be a good idea to use as many of those shades in a look as possible, and oftentimes that means that you will need to open multiple palettes to create a look. And this year I have noticed, since I have been doing a palette and Pando's eyeshadows, that so many times I have actually had to open 3, 4, even 5 eyeshadow palettes so that I have been able to create a look, a complete look, and at the same time make good progress on the eyeshadows that I have been panning. And I just feel that is a little bit too much for me, especially since very soon I will have a newborn baby. I'm sure the time that I will have to do my eyeshadows is going to be so much less what it has been so far. The less palettes I can open to create a look, the better. That being said, I feel I have also learned so much from my Pando palette experience with Modern Renaissance. There was some hate panning involved, and that is not what I want to do anymore. So even though I am going to do Pando palette, I don't think I want to take it quite as seriously anymore and go for a completely empty palette, unless I actually like every single shade. So yeah, next year it is going to be a Pando palette that I'm going to be doing. What I have been changing my mind about a little bit is if I want to do 1 palette or 2 palettes, because there is actually 2 palettes that I would love to pan. However, I think the 2 palettes might be too much, so I'm probably going to go with just 1 palette and then, you know, allow myself to rotate through my collection more, because that is something I have been struggling with. So I have been, you know, so hyper focused on panning that a lot of my collection has been quite neglected. Anyways, I feel this video is pretty long for an eyeshadow panning project finale video, and it's starting to be pretty rambly at this point. But yeah, it's just, I love panning eyeshadows, even though sometimes it is a struggle, and even though I want to take a little bit more relaxed approach to it, it is still something that I really do love. And yeah, it was so fun to film this video, and I want to thank everyone that has been watching either my Pando palette updates or my Pando's eyeshadows updates, or both. So I hope you stick around and are here for my Pando palette intro for 2022. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you on my next one. Bye bye!